counting down to primary election day, which is Tuesday, June 8th here in New Jersey. New Jersey and Virginia are the only two states electing a governor this year, so there are going to be a lot of eyes on what is happening here. Phil Murphy is the incumbent and unopposed in the Democratic primary. There are 4 Republicans running for the nomination: Jack Ciattarelli, Hirsch Singh, Phil Rizzo, and Brian Levine. Ciattarelli is considered the front runner, and he has spent more than all of the Republican candidates combined. There are a lot of other races going on as the entire legislature is up, as well as numerous local elections. Later on, we're going to be talking with Lambertville's Mayor Julia Fahl about the race in her city. First up, we are happy to welcome Tom Mastrangelo. He is a county commissioner in Morris County who is also running to get the Republican nomination for the 26th Assembly District. And welcome so much. Good to have you here on the show.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me.
We've seen your ad that's running, and one of the things that you talk about is Republicans fighting each other. So can you just address a little bit about the overall tenor and the tone of the campaign?
Sure. I truly believe in beginning of the ad, you see, and in my mail, actually, you see Ronald Reagan, and he talks about how Republicans, there's the ad, how Republicans should not speak ill of another Republican. And unfortunately, in this particular campaign, other candidates have actually really been attacking each other. They've been attacking each other through dark money PACs. Actually, one particular candidate has, and it's uncalled for because the people of New Jersey are tired. The people of New Jersey want to hear. They have a burden on them. It's property taxes. It's in every aspect of this state is overtaxed, and they don't want to hear candidates falsely going after each other to win a seat. You have to win a seat based on what your record is, what you're going to accomplish for the people. So I chose, as I always do, because I'm a 4-term county commissioner up here in Morris County, I chose not to go in the gutter. I chose to continue to run on my issues, continue to run on my performance as a elected official, and to win this race based on that, not on lies. You have a particular PAC, Stronger Foundations, which has a D rating by the Better Business Bureau, who is supporting Betty Lou DeCroce, who's come out and said, I support sanctuary cities. That is so far from the truth that it makes no sense to anybody. So, we need to really run clean campaigns. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear anything else.
Yeah, a difficult primary and infighting within parties, that's not uncommon in a primary, but you say there's something a little bit different this time around.
Well, I think it's into gutter politics. So, I really think the people of New Jersey don't want to hear that. I can tell you the people of Morris County, and we have our we've always had open primaries here in Morris County. They get pretty interesting, but I've always prevailed in these races. Just running on my record and running on what we're gonna provide to the people.
Well, let's talk a little bit about open primaries, because New Jersey, you have to be registered you have to declare a party before casting a ballot in a primary. But in Bergen, it's an open primary as opposed to the closed elsewhere in the state. Can you talk a little bit about that? It's confusing.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Morris County. Traditionally, we've always
Morris County. Yes, excuse me, Morris. I misspoke there.
We've traditionally had an open primary system, and what that meant is that anybody can run for the office, and you would go down. The office would be listed at the top, and you would go down that whole column, and all the candidates would be listed in that column, and the people would decide in a primary who they wanted to send to the general election in November. What's happened now? A convention took place a few months ago. Back in March, and the county Republican Party, a small group of people, decided that they were going to put a county line in, or a county column, where they pick who they want in a primary, and then it kind of sways people or directs the voter into that column. So if you look at the Morris County ballot today, you'll see column number 2 you'll have a list of the governors. The governor candidate, who's Jack Ciattarelli. You'll have the senator. You'll have the county, the General Assembly, the county freeholders. So you've got that column. Then in another column, in column 5, and that's where I am today, is the others who did not either make a convention. I got in after the convention, by the way, but who did not win the convention are in that column, or they did not get a designation, and the designation is regular Republican organization for the county line or for the county ballot.
Right. Yeah, talking about those lines and where you are on a ballot can be, it can definitely impact how voters are going, because they're coming in thinking gubernatorial and they don't always think about some of those local races. So why did you decide to run for the state assembly?
Well, I decided to run once the one of the incumbents that did not win the county endorsement or the county column, I'll call it that, and so that candidate is in column 5 with me. But to answer your question, once that occurred, and she did not win the county convention, and that's Betty Lee DeCroce. I saw it as an opportunity to jump into the race because, frankly, the ballot has become dysfunctional here in Morris County. It's not structured, it's not organized the way some of these other county lines are around the state. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but the county lines in New Jersey, we're the only state that does this. Every state in the union has an open primary system. So, I think it's something that has to change. I think the people have to decide, not a small group of people who want to steer certain candidates and or steer voters to certain candidates.
Well, there is certainly a spotlight on voting across the country after the presidential election. A lot of states, or a few states, are looking at changing some of the rules around it, and it's making the national spotlight. So in New Jersey, we had to vote virtual. We did not have in-person voting, so people are going to be returning in person. We have about a third of our New Jersey voters are unaffiliated or independent. So can you talk a little bit about how that impacts primaries?
Well, in primaries, the unaffiliates can walk into on election day, and they can declare where they want to vote in the primary. So that's number one. So that does give them the opportunity to vote. They just have to decide what party ballot they're going to vote on. I think it affects a primary based on who's running for office and who has the right message. So if those independents or / unaffiliates, you've got some great candidates in the Republican Party. Chances are they're gonna swing that way. If you've got some great candidates in the Democratic Party, they're gonna swing that way. So that's where I think it may affect it. It comes down to the candidates and who's got the best message.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about yesterday in Trenton? There were a lot of people outside, very concerned about what's going on inside. And in essence, the governor is signing legislation today that ends his powers as far as the COVID-19 crisis goes. And if you're looking at it as an outsider, you're thinking, well, that's not a big deal. He's ending the powers, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. And a lot of people were very unhappy about how this went down. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on what happened in Trenton yesterday. Some people were thinking that it was just more political theater, as opposed to letting those powers just simply run out, as opposed to having something in the legislature where there, a little bit more fanfare around it, so to speak.
Well, look, my opinion on the whole issue, from the start of COVID till now, is that Phil Murphy has he acted more like a king than a governor. I believe that he could have done a lot better job in working with the legislature, and I think some of the legislators could have done a lot better job in making sure that this situation did not continue. But the power of the governor, New Jersey has a we've got a strong governorship as compared to some states. But I believe in cases such as we just lived through, that should not be one person striking a pen and saying this is what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. I think, and we've got to push back on that. That's not what, we don't want a dictatorship in this country. We don't want a dictatorship in this state. And you need strong voices, and I believe I'm one of those strong voices to push back not only on the strength of the governor's office and where that influence from the governor's office should go, but you need a strong voice down in Trenton to push back on taxes. We are the most heavily taxed state in the union, whether it be on the property taxes, whether it be on the corporate business tax, whether it be on our income taxes, and people are leaving the state. And we need to, let's forget about all the fanfare. Let's forget about all the drama, okay? Because part of that is people trying to get elected, which I understand, okay? But we've got to really get down to business. The Democrats have to get down to business. The Republicans certainly will get down to business. But we have to find a way to work with each other, because if we don't do that, more people are going to leave the state. And I would say that I think we all talk to people. I'm sure you do too, Laura, on the number of people that we encounter who say they're either leaving the state, they're on their way to leaving the state, and we've got to come up with a better solution to keep people here.
Well,
I think it's taxes. So
right. Well, we thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us after the primary. There's usually that infighting between parties. Governor Murphy is running unopposed, so after the primary, it'll be interesting to see how Republicans look to coming together to try and oust or try and beat him in the general election in November. Thank you so much again for taking the time to talk about your campaign.
And thank you for giving me the time. I appreciate it. Great show.
And we want you to stay with New Jersey politics. Up next, we're going to be looking at some local races because all politics is local. Stay with us.
2020 felt like a dark tunnel. And while 2020 is over, the impact is not. The pandemic affected both our physical and mental health.
We started the Cody Fund for Mental Health to change lives. So we want you to know about NJ211.
It's a referral service for anyone in crisis, even children.
I am living proof that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And it's not a train, it's help. It's NJ211.
Hi, I'm Debbie Peterson, founder of the Wellness Gala. I'm very excited to bring you our television show, Balance Your Life with the Wellness Gala. Each week, we'll be bringing you experts in the fields of health, beauty, and wellness. We'll also bring you great tools and options to help you lead your most fulfilling life. You can watch Balance Your Life with the Wellness Gala on News 12 Plus throughout the New York metropolitan area. You can find it at Verizon Fios Channel 530 or Optimum Channel 61.
Swing the hips. Oh boy, they weren't kidding. Whew.
You're looking for a gold crown?
Sure. So you say you're helping people through. How are you doing that?
Tuesday, June 8th is primary election day in New Jersey, and there are a handful of municipal races to watch. One is in Lambertville, where former Mayor Dave Delvecchio is running against Andrew Nowick. Nowick is a newcomer to the political scene. Delvecchio was mayor for 27 years before losing 3 years ago in a primary challenge to our next guest, Mayor Julia Fahl. Mayor Fahl is not running for re-election. She is joining me now, though, for the first time to talk about the upcoming election, and we're really happy to have her here. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Lambertville and why the primary is so important is because we have upwards of 65% are registered Democrats so often who wins the primary and who goes in to win in November. So can you tell us a little bit, first of all, why you decided not to run?
Certainly. Well, I'd like to say, the 3 years that I've been the mayor here have been a real joy. And I've done a lot in the last 2.5 years. We finished a stalled DOT project and fixed Route 29 so it's safe for our community. We preserved the Clawson property, which is one of our most beloved and historic pieces of land. I started to really fix the budget, which was in really dire straits when I got here. And I think most importantly, I increased communication to our community, which we were talking about. So we did a quarterly newsletter, a weekly email, calls during emergencies and storms like the COVID-19 emergency, and even community meetings about local construction projects. So I'm proud of the time that I and the stuff I've accomplished as the mayor of Lambertville, but it's time for someone else to start to take over.
Right. And so Dave Delvecchio has been mayor for 27 years. We had him on last week, talk a little bit about his candidacy, and someone who's a part of your community advisory team, Andrew Nowick. That's the other Democrat running. We were hoping to have him on. His schedule just wasn't allowing, but that is someone who you are supporting. And can you tell us why?
Certainly. Well, I'd like to say, I've been a little disappointed in Mayor Delvecchio's campaign. When we ran against each other in 2018, we really were focused on having a positive campaign where we were talking about the issues. And in fact, both of us would thank each other for our commitment to our community at each one of our public meetings. But that's not the candidate that's running this year. Mayor Delvecchio has went immediately out to solicit an endorsement from an organization, Lambertville United, that has been harassing and threatening me during my time as mayor. And I've actually written a couple of op-eds about that experience. He also has sent out multiple negative mailers, which is really not, I think, what the city wants to see, specifically about me as a failed mayor and a failed leader. And most importantly, or I guess most troublesome, he has started to pit neighbors against neighbors on sites like Facebook, and it has turned this entire election really toxic. One of the things that I think is really important when we're thinking about who's going to be our next mayor, it's about who's going to be our next leader. And a leader's responsibility is to set the tone. And Mayor Delvecchio during this campaign has made it clear that this toxic, hateful environment is the tone he wants to set. That's why I'm supporting Andrew.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about, because I live in neighboring West Amwell, so I see a lot of the things that are going on. And for our general audience throughout New Jersey, it gets a little inside baseball. But, you see things that are getting kind of personal. People choose a town because they love the location. They love the people. They love to be able to walk down to get their morning coffee, or they like to be able to walk to the school. And those quality of life issues are so important. So can you talk about Andrew? He has not run for office before. So why do you think he would do a good job at maintaining what people in Lambertville really love so much about this community?
Absolutely. One of the things that's so lovely about Lambertville is that it's a small city, right? So your next door neighbors, you sit on your porch, you watch kids walk to school right on Elm Street every day. And I think that the toxic tone that I was talking about really isn't representative of the community feel that everybody came to Lambertville for. And Andrew has actually made, as a part of the central part of his campaign, changing the tone in politics in Lambertville. We've got to be able to come together and talk about big ideas and big changes in our community together. And if we keep this sort of toxic back and forth, neighbors against neighbors, it's going to really change the way that people interact in our really beautiful community.
Well, I mean, it's 1 square mile. It is a small city. It's a city, not a city. It is a small city. And there are a lot of people who work in Trenton, people, commuting into New York. So, there's so many different types of people who live in this community. And again, just trying to, when you're out and about and talking to people and you're not getting drug into campaign issues, what are people talking about? What are they saying that they like? What are they saying that they don't like? Are there things that, that you would like to see continue on, or perhaps even not continue on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of Lambertville's, one of the most important things that Lambertville needs to consider in the next 10 years is its budget. And I know that that's not a sexy topic, but, over the last 2.5 years, it has been the topic on folks' minds as they've started to key into what's happening in our local community. I was talking to a friend of mine who actually was the former executive director of the Government Financial Officers Association in New Jersey. And what he said was so smart. You can't change change a budget in 2 years, right? It's like turning a battleship. And so I've spent the last 2.5 years really trying to fix some irresponsible spending practices. And the next 3 years is going to decide whether or not we stay on that responsible financial course. But beyond that, the other thing that folks really want to talk about here, in my opinion, is making sure that our downtown businesses can recover from COVID. And we've done some really innovative stuff from the governing body to ensure that we could start doing outdoor seating, reducing the taxes and fees on our local businesses. We even provided outdoor public restrooms and sanitation areas during COVID to ensure that we could keep our downtown businesses alive. But now we need to get back from just surviving and into thriving. And I think everybody in Lambertville is committed to working on that.
And you bring up an important point about the budget, and nothing is really easy. The wheels of government, turn slowly, no matter how well intended. And there are a lot of issues that Lambertville is facing, from issues from schools to roads and just quality of life. And there's talk of certain development, and people they like this area. They like how it looks. They like the feel of it. And especially, you talked about businesses and ensuring that they not only come back and they thrive. So are there any things that you can talk to that the town can, look forward to as we're coming into summer season? You'll see more people out. I know Shad Fest, which is typically held in April, is going to be in October.
Yes.
My son and I were just talking about this. He was like, Mom, what are he's a little younger. He's like, well, are the shad just not coming yet? I'm like, oh. We talked a little bit about the environment and how the Delaware River was clean and now the shad run, but there's some exciting things going on where other people can come and enjoy the town and benefit our local businesses.
Absolutely. One of the really exciting things that we just finished this week was closing on the Clausen property. And if for those of you who haven't come to the city of Lambertville, first of all, what are you waiting for? Get on down here. But also, it's really at the base of the northern entrance of our town. It's an 8.5 square acre piece of property with 2 of the most historic barns and the Holcomb House, where George Washington actually planned the Battle of Monmouth. And we were able to work together as a community to preserve this property. And whoever's going to be mayor next is going to get to decide how that property gets used. And I think that's going to be a really exciting opportunity for us, for folks who are interested in Lambertville's history, as well as our vibrant downtown and our local businesses. That's going to be a driver for folks who want to come in and see these types of historic buildings baked right into a city with a lot else going on.
Yeah, there is. We're right at the crossroads of the American Revolution. So just a final question. You're not running for re-election. So what's next for you?
Oh, it's a great question. Well, first and foremost, I promised my wife I'd take her to Paris. So that is
nice.
That's right on the list. As soon as I'm done being mayor, we're heading out of town. But besides that, I intend to stay really involved in the city of Lambertville, because this is my home and it's a place that I love. And I know that whomever is going to be the mayor next is going to have a lot of challenges. And I'm looking forward to working with them to ensure that the next stage of our city is one where we're healthy and thriving. But I do hope that everybody remembers to vote on June 8th.
Yep. All right. Yeah, it's hard to believe that we're already up upon primary election day. And we thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and to share some of your thoughts on the election and what happens next.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I'm looking forward to doing it again soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we thank all of you for watching this edition of New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. Again, election day, primary election day is Tuesday, June 8th. We'll see you next time on New Jersey On Air. We're streaming online and on the app.